Hi everyone, welcome to my channel and welcome to my first video. My name is Amrita, I'm 18 years old and I'm currently heading towards the end of my gap year. And I thought it would be a really good idea for my first video to talk about the reasons why I took a gap year. And I really wanted to talk about the benefits of taking one and how much it helped me and how it really put me in good stead for university in September. I was really keen on making this video because I know that results day is approaching and I remember the state of mind that I was in this time last year. And I had this premonition that I wasn't going to get grades that I was completely happy with based on my performance in some of my final tests. And lo and behold, a results day came and that did come into fruition and I wasn't happy with the grades that I got. But I think that in that point in time, I thought in a very close-minded way and I handled the situation in an extremely pessimistic way. And I just wanted to put out this video to promote taking a gap year. And I didn't use my gap year in the typical way. I didn't go traveling, I didn't take any internships. I used it to retake my A-levels. And that's something that I haven't seen done very often, but I just really want to normalize it and know that it's absolutely okay. And I want to promote the idea because it helps so much with my self-esteem and confidence. Just a quick disclaimer, I know that being able to take a gap year is an extremely privileged thing. And I'm extremely lucky to be in the circumstance where I could take a gap year, but I'm completely aware that there are many people who aren't in a position where they can take a gap year. But I just wanted to put this video out there just to give an alternative option in case things don't go to plan for some people on results day. So with all of that being said, this video is basically going to outline all of my thoughts, reflections, and lessons that I've learned this year, and I'm really excited to share them with you all. So the first point that I wanted to talk about is mental resilience. And I think that this is a quality that I've acquired over the course of this year. And I think in order to fully illustrate this point, I cast my mind back to results day when I didn't get the grades that I wanted. And I thought that perhaps what I wanted to pursue wasn't the right path for me and I wasn't capable of achieving all of these goals that I set for myself. But I think that in reality, in most circumstances, failure comes before success. And I couldn't really accept the grades that I got, and I knew that I was capable of achieving so much more. So I didn't want to just accept the grades that I got, and I wanted to fight back, I guess, and I wanted to try again. Because I think that if I went to university with the grades that I got, I think that there will be this perpetual fear. In retrospect, I'm actually really glad that this happened to me because I needed to know that most things in life don't go as per plan, and I'm going to have to take detours and take different paths, but it taught me to never give up. And I think my determination to do well in this gap year really showed to me how much going to university and pursuing a course of my interest is so important to me. And I'm really glad that I took a gap year in that regard. And I also wanted to add that if I were to go to university last year, I think that failure would be a perpetual fear within me. And I want to perceive it in a sort of different way, and I want to embrace failure instead of looking upon it negatively. I guess what I want to say is that having setbacks is an absolutely normal thing, but having the determination to try again is a really amazing thing because you build up that quality of mental resilience, and that's something that you're going to carry with you for the rest of your life. And I just wished that I had this mindset at the beginning of my gap year, but instead I looked upon things in an extremely negative way and I just continued to be ashamed of my results, and that only negatively impacted me further. The second point that I wanted to discuss is about this idea of knowing my potential a little more and understanding my capabilities. When it came to my studies, I always remember myself being a relatively average student, and I don't ever remember myself excelling as much. And I think that when I come home from writing a test, I wouldn't get what I want, and that was very normal for me and something that I pretty much normalized for myself. But I always remember my parents telling me that I had the potential to do well. And I didn't really understand this at first. But I think that this gap year showed me a really, really amazing thing. When I came back from writing all of my tests, I always had these realizations of what I could have done better. If I did this differently, or if I did that differently, if I revised this more, if I focused on my weaknesses, and if I apply that into a greater context and really acknowledge where I could have done things differently in the whole year, it was something that I had in mind to apply in my gap year. The next point that I want to talk about is a little more personal to me, but I think it's one of the more prominent thoughts that arise when I think about taking a gap year. And this is to do with the idea of having an opportunity to do something different and take a new path. Growing up, I've always been quite shy and a little more introverted, and I think I generally lacked quite a bit of confidence. And I think due to this lack of confidence and trust I had in myself, I struggled when it came to making big decisions. And the thought of what to do in my future would primarily be based upon what the majority of other people were doing because I wouldn't let myself follow my own path. I also have a tendency to put things in boxes and define things as either correct or wrong. And I think that when it came to what to do after year 13, I had it ingrained in my mind that I must go to university, and I classed it as the correct thing to do. But whilst that works for the majority of people, it didn't work for me. So I guess that with this sort of way of thinking, when it came to results day, I felt as though I was in a big predicament because the only path that I set for myself didn't work. So it felt as though everything was over. But I think that me thinking in such a closed-minded way really negatively impacted me mentally and physically. And I want everyone to know that there are so many different ways of getting to where you want to. The next point that I want to talk about is how taking a gap year allowed me to learn more about myself on a deeper level. Managing my studies independently and being under full control of how I utilize my time allowed me to come across many realizations about the different things that are important to me. And I gained greater clarity in terms of the character traits that mean a lot to me. I learned that I really love working hard and I do feel pretty motivated to achieve. But I think one thing that I struggled establishing this year is a balance. And I'm really glad that I know this now because it's something that I'm going to be aware of when I start university in September. When I was considering taking a gap year, I think the aspect that I was most unnerved about was the lack of social interactions and the large proportion of time that I'd be spending on my own. And knowing that I'd be studying, I knew that it would be difficult to establish that balance and find time to socialize. And I was worried about the implications that this might have. And I was scared that I'd become disconnected from the real world. And I was also worried that once the studying ends, I'd find it difficult transitioning into the state of socializing again. And I thought that I'd lose this ability to socialize, but that isn't the case at all. I think that at first it felt like a different experience, but I think that I actively tried to make this year as healthy as possible for myself. And I know that I'm naturally one to compare, so I deleted social media as soon as I could. I truly believe that after this year, I've developed a deeper connection with myself. And I think that I'm now able to find happiness from within instead of attempting to seek it in other people and things, which is something that I'm really happy about. The next thing that I'd like to talk about is my change in mindset and how my perception of studying and exams has changed. Theoretically, with the grades that I got last year, I think that I could have gone to university, but I think that I would have gone into the experience with a lack of confidence, firstly, and I would have gone into it with a sense of inferiority, this feeling as though I wasn't capable of doing well and I wasn't capable of keeping up with the work and all of that. My mind was filled with fear, and fear was how I approached nearly everything in the realm of academics, whether that is studying or writing a test. And it's really an emotion that reached such an intensity that it was really holding me back. And I really wanted to use this year to change my relationship with studying. And I think that I've reached a point where I now think about university and I'm filled with excitement, and that fear is no longer holding me back in the way it once used to. The last point that I'd like to share is to do with how taking a gap year allowed me to reconsider my options in terms of what course I wanted to study and the universities that I want to apply to. Going through the university application process for a second time made me feel more sure of the decisions that I was making. And this time round, I feel 100% fully convinced that I'll truly enjoy all of the courses that I applied to. It makes me really happy that I took a step back and took some time to reconsider what to study, because I realize now how important it is that you study what you love. So if you're unsure of what to pursue, I would really encourage for you to take some time out and to think about it if that is something that's on your mind. With all of that being said, that is everything that I have to share on my gap year experience, and I really appreciate it that you have watched until this point, and it means so much. I'd appreciate any kind of feedback in the comments below, and I can't wait to see you in my next video.